So guys, we're finally up and running. So we can finish off this video series of me building my computer. Again, I'm gonna go into finishing up the lighting, closing this thing off, some of the software, and some of the other cabling things that I've seen in terms of issues that I had with my personal setup. Not things that you guys will probably see in your setup. It just depends on how complicated your audio is. But anyway, let's get into the actual video and finish this guy so I can start other reviews. Last video we left off with all the cables attached and just having to wait for a single RGB hub from a Corsair. Let's see how that worked out. So Corsair sent me a replacement for the hub that was shorted. But then I was wondering, why did it come in such a big box? And again, you guys, I don't know how logistics and business work sometimes, but I definitely know if you order one, you shouldn't be getting 10. So what I'm going to do with these, I have no freaking clue. But I have my piece, so we can finish building my computer. Plugging in the case fans into the RGB hub was the last step, and now it's all about placement. Luckily, the drive bays and the power supply provided perfect placement for my various hubs and Commander Pro. It allowed me to tuck away everything nicely and orderly. While I did my best to clear paths for the fans and put some logic in the cables, I was just too lazy to make it truly sexy like some other YouTubers out there. However, the Lian Li 011 Dynamic XL does have a plate that hides all that garbage and makes it look clean, so screw it. We're gonna go with that. Let's get that back panel on it and forget that I ever had trash back there, and hopefully never have to look at it until my next upgrade. With that squared away, the case fans are lit and we can officially be done with wiring. Thank the Lord. Now getting to the CPU cooler, the NZXT Kraken Z73 has a bunch of visualization options out of the box, from readouts to color logos. However, a lot of people are buying this because they want to play around with their own graphics or introduce an animated GIF to give their PC more flavor. This is as easy as uploading any animated GIF into the NZXT cam software. It will also remember any GIF that you upload and will store it into a library, so if you ever change your mind or want to do some quick switching, you can do that through the app. However, for my build, I'm keeping it pretty simple and going with the dual temperature readouts of the GPU and CPU just because I want to see that and see how my computer is performing. Originally, I was going to go with a pure white build, but since my friend dropped me a little Kakashi figurine, I was inspired to play with more purples because my room also does have a lot of hits of purple in it, and it works with one of Kakashi's attacks. Using the NZXT cam software, I set the radiator fans to a purple and white rain effect, which would simulate storm clouds. For the case fans, I used the Corsair IQ app to mix in a blue and purple slow whirlpool effect to kind of simulate fallen rain on the ground. And then for the Asus Aura app, I just matched the motherboard with the purple that I've been using. And again, that's worked actually a lot better than it would have been with the white, because when I initially turned it on with a white theme, that white was more like a pale blue than a pure white, so purple works better here. Lastly, in Aura, I also adjusted my RAM pattern and color. The Comet option does a good job at portraying a series of lightning strikes, which would look super dope behind the Kakashi figurine I was gifted. So after some final adjustments, alignments, and spot checking that all the lights and effects that I want in there are working, I should be good to seal this guy up. Now for some random shots with some random color themes before I get into the rest of this setup. With the computer up and running, I had to get my desk up and ready for the new setup as well. Initially, I was going to have my tower on my table, but after rethinking, I decided to go for a more clean look that gave me better organization and easier access to things that I use often. This involved me moving my amp and my speakers and towers off the table and into stands and shelves. I also wanted to cover my desk due to the crazy beatings and scratches it's taken over the years. So I bought an oversized mousepad off of Etsy with one of my favorite scenes from Spider-Verse on it. Again, the purple hits definitely work with the accents that are all over my room. I was able to find a perfectly sized IKEA shelf that kind of had just enough organization for my cables, converters, and anything that I needed quick access to. And then adding some rubber feet to give it a little bit more clearance so that it could clear the mousepad and not interfere with the shelves. Overall, I really like how it worked out. I just have a lot more access to the things that I regularly use, like my massage gun and my 2x2, so using microphones and having ample space on my table just gives my workflow a little bit more open space, so I have more room to work with and project around with. So after I wrapped everything up, got everything in place, fired it up and started using it for a little bit, I did notice two major things that I didn't expect I'd have to deal with, but I was able to easily troubleshoot them. So the first one was I was getting this really eerie ghost whoosh noise. And again, all my fans are running on quiet speeds, but I was getting some sort of turbulent air, but it literally just sounded like a ghost, like a very low droning noise. And it wasn't the normal fan noise that you normally hear on a computer. So I was trying to figure it out, all my fans. I went through the IQ settings to see if there was a fan that was running over speed or too high of an RPM, and everything was running pretty slowly and very quietly. I double checked the NZXT cam as well to see if those fans were doing anything different, and they weren't. And I thought it was like maybe because the MLs had to push more sound, it's causing some stuff with the radiator, but that wasn't the issue either. So everything was running at a very quiet speed, but I was still getting this like low droning whoosh noise. I couldn't figure it out at first. However, I did think about it that I do have 6 fans pushing out of a radiator and 3 high static pressure fans. So because there's that resistance, I did get the benefit of what I wanted in terms of a positive pressure, being able to have more air coming in than pushing out, so that I don't get dust issues, and it's very efficient in terms of how it moves air and it blows it upwards where hot air goes. So that was all very beneficial. However, I think what it seemed to be the issue is that too much air was coming in, so it's very turbulent, and then the 3 fans were struggling to push all that extra air out, so then it was causing very turbulent air to be pushed out, and then there's just high-speed air coming out of the actual case. That was at least a theory that I had. None of that might have made sense at all, so to you engineering people out there, do not give me crap for that. I am not an engineer, I am guessing. But what I did do is test that theory by slowing down the speeds on the IQ settings. So they do have a quiet setting, and I think the quietest setting is at 600 RPMs, and then it goes to 800, then it goes to 1000 or 1120, and then it goes to like 1500 or something crazy like that. But anyway, there's that curve of the quiet. So essentially what I did is I pulled all the curve down, or most of the curve points down to 200 minus, so 400, 600, all that sort of stuff, as the temperature rose. So made the whole curve down 200 RPMs, and it seemed to solve the issue. That whooshing sound wasn't there, and it seemed like it wasn't causing issues with the radiator or anything. And if I looked at the settings, or at least I looked at my actual NZXT Kraken, it didn't really have that much impact on the temperatures either. So because it didn't have any temperature issues with the CPU, I thought it was fine. So that's what I'm doing to resolve that sort of sound issue, is just lowering the speed of my my intake fans, and then keeping the same for my outtake or my exhaust fans. So that seemed to solve that issue. And then the second issue I had was the sound cables, or the sound cabling. So here's what I encountered. So the audio for this video just sounds like a super demon, so I'm just gonna explain it. Essentially, my power cables were managed like trash, and I was getting loud hissing noise from my speakers, and it's really annoying. So in the future, just follow my Instagram stories. You'll be able to hear my voice in a more natural tone, see my updates more live, and you won't have to see these crappy videos from my Pixel 3. Please help me. So as you saw on that, I was getting a little slight hiss when it's quiet. Actually not slight, it was actually pretty apparent. If I didn't have any music running, it was pretty obvious. And even when I had music like on lower, like 20%, I could still hear that hiss over the music. So that's not good. Obviously my speakers didn't really break or anything happened because I wasn't transporting them already. They stayed static. But what was the issue probably was a lot of cables moved around, and based on my old cable setup, there were a lot of things next to each other. And now that I've included this computer with some other peripherals, there was an instance that some of the sound cables may have gotten interference from the power cables. And generally from what I've seen in past speaker setups, that's generally the issue, is that these actual audio cables that go into your speakers get interference from somewhere. And again, like, I'm no audiophile that knows how to do like studio speakers and all that other sort of stuff. I just have basics in my brain. So I just knew that maybe by cleaning up the what do you call it, cable management, I could improve that a bit. And again, as you saw in my other video, or my other part of this video, I did very minimal cable management. I just kind of brought things back down to the ground. I separated out power and sound cables and did some sort of isolation as much as I could, so that the cables weren't all stuck in one place and the power was kind of separated. So did everything I could to reduce that interference. And as you can hear, there's not much sound. Like in the normal instance, you'd be able to hear it even with this recording, but now there's no hiss, so it's dope. So I think I fixed that problem. Other than that, those are the major two things, and I've been talking about this for about 5 minutes, so that's probably a long part of this video. But those are probably the most interesting aspects of this build. But let's wrap this up. So before I killed my other computer, I did run a Cinebench test to just get a comparison. Again, I'm not a huge benchmark guy, I'm not a professional at this, but I did want to get some sort of metrics just to show you how laughably old and crappy my old computer was and how much better performance I've gotten. So I'm running Cinebench now, and I'll get you guys the numbers and I'll flash them on screen. But hopefully this will get you an understanding of the improvement that I've gotten from this upgrade and how this will help me in the future. Wow. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Sorry that I shortchanged cable management a little bit more than I wanted to, but the audio stuff was just a little really complicated to power, as well as there's a lot of long cables because they're supposed to be for actual studios and not like a smaller desktop setting. So hiding all that stuff and figuring out the cables was a little bit an issue, especially with what other things that I needed to power. So I might revisit it another time. It's just not a huge priority in terms of videos that I want to make, but maybe again in the future I'll do it. Overall, I had a great time building the computer. I did have some frustrations, some stuff around cabling and things just not working the way I expected, but it did force me to go back into researching it, reading a lot about it, learning about the whole process, and I really appreciate the build process more so that I did run into those problems and it wasn't easy peasy like it was last time. I learned a lot more about the industry, and it did help me drive even like things like stock picking, being able to read about products coming out, what timing of new things, common issues, helped me kind of understand companies and how they perform logistically as well as their technological performance, which, you know, helped me jump into certain things like NVIDIA. So I do appreciate it because it had a lot more benefit than I expected. And another thing that I learned is how my brain processes troubleshooting. Where do I freak out? Where am I solid? Where do I do my proper research? Where do I jump the gun? It's been pretty therapeutic, and it's stuff that I can apply to work, and it's actually already improved my work. So a lot of benefits that I didn't expect, and I would encourage a lot of you to pursue it. It's such a fun thing to do, and yeah, it can be frustrating at times, but it does teach you a lot, and there's a lot of good concepts in there that, you know, make it yours, but it also makes you better as a human, and that's what we're here for. But anyway, next week, or whenever the next video comes, hopefully shortly, we'll be getting back on cadence. I finally have my computer, so obviously I can do things much faster, and I won't have to worry about audio sync issues and rendering and because it's all there. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed as much as I have. If you have and liked the series or like any of my other videos on my channels, please consider subscribing, commenting, liking, doing all the things that you normally do on a video that you like and love. And as always, appreciate you. We're reaching 500 soon. I'm waiting for it. You guys are close. Help me out here. Help me out here. Help me out here. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. Peace out.